The Detroit River is the busiest international crossing in North America. 5 million people live in the Detroit River watershed, where they have worked and recreated for many generations. The river is situated in the most biologically diverse region in Canada. It's the only river designated as both an American and Canadian heritage river. Its importance is woven through the fabric of our community. When the Windsor-Detroit area underwent rapid industrialization at the turn of the 20th century, the Detroit River became notoriously polluted. The 1970s and 1980s saw the development of a massive conservation effort aimed at cleaning up the Detroit River. In 1987, the Detroit River was identified as one of 43 areas of concern, or extensively degraded areas of the Great Lakes, under the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. Since 1987, for nearly 35 years, the Detroit River Canadian Cleanup, or DRCC, has been working with partners to implement hundreds of projects to address the impairment of the river's beneficial uses and return the river to health.
Phytoplankton photosynthesize, zooplankton eat phytoplankton, fish eat zooplankton, in some cases maybe even some of the larger phytoplankton. So it's very important to the fish. They need this stuff. People understand fish. They can look at the river and see fish, but plankton's a lot harder to understand. And impairment can have human health effects as well. In eutrophic environments, you see that in Lake Erie, for example, you don't just have algal blooms, but these algae produce toxins. And those toxins can be hazardous, right? If we saw excess bacteria in the system, well, that would certainly affect your use of the river. So all of these things can very much have human health effects too. Even into the 1970s, not a lot was actually known. A lot of concerns about lots of phosphorus getting dumped into the water, leading to lots of growth in algae in particular. Concerns that chemicals might be getting into the food web, that say zooplankton might be taking them up. But nobody had really looked at these things together in terms of the overall food web. By the time the current version of the remedial action plan was organized, they'd listed the phytoplankton and zooplankton BUI as being in need of further assessment. That's kind of where we came in. BUI number 13 has been a real challenge, both in terms of defining it and coming up with suitable listing and delisting criteria. My study was in 2019. That was really the first sort of comprehensive study. So what our research really did show was that the plankton, the phytoplankton, the zooplankton, we even looked at microbes, was really behaving the way we expected in our river systems. You know, the differences we found upstream to downstream, near shore to offshore, were very much in line with how a river should behave, which allowed the delisting process to continue. I mean, in terms of things that benefit plankton directly and phytoplankton in particular, I mean, the primary tool used is sewage treatment. It's regulating, in particular, the phosphorus content. You know, that's been in place since the 1970s. In terms of what an individual can do, if you live in the city, you know, what you flush. If you're in a rural area and you're on a septic system, well, maintaining that septic system is important. Whether it's the Detroit River or any other waterway that you use or like to visit or anything, you know, always think about what goes in there. Although you really can't see plankton, you still need to think about it. Those are really the most important things you can do.
Tremendous progress has been made in restoring the Detroit River thanks to significant investment from federal and provincial governments and collaborative efforts between municipalities and agencies, indigenous communities, environmental organizations, industry, and interested citizens like you. Species such as lake sturgeon and bald eagles have returned and water quality has improved. Just 4 beneficial uses remain to be reclassified to not impaired on the Canadian side of the river, and then the Detroit River will no longer be listed as an area of concern. The Detroit River Canadian Cleanup looks forward to continuing to work with you to implement more stewardship projects to keep the river healthy and productive.